So you've decided on your CNC. Great! If you haven't, watch for future posts to help you decide. Have you ordered already? Awesome! Now, are you ready for when it shows up? Does it have somewhere to go in your shop? Do you have all the tools you'll need to make it work? No? Well, stick with me and I'll help you get things set up. The first thing you'll need is a place to put your machine. Now, if your machine came with a stand, all you need is floor space to set that machine up. If your machine doesn't have a stand, like mine doesn't, you just need a work surface that's big enough to put it on. I ordered the 500mm X-Carve, no stand, so it's sitting on the end of this table. I think it's going to work out just fine. You'll need a little bit of space around your machine for tools and parts and accessories. You don't need a lot, just a little bit. Enough if you're running multiple parts. It's nice to have a stack of the parts waiting to be machined, and you have your machine running one, then you have another stack of parts that are already done. That way everything's separated, you know everything gets run, and it's all organized. Now, if you have a habit of cluttering up flat surfaces, you should see my desk, you may not want to have as much open space around your machine, if any at all. You don't want to have a stack of clutter right by your machine while it's running. It's shaking the table, that stack's vibrating, and then it falls over on your machine. And you're going to end up breaking tools or machining things you didn't want to machine. Now, where in your shop does it go? Well, you need power. It's an electronic machine, so there are powered components to it. You need at least 3 outlets for the machine and the accessories. I have a surge protector right here behind me. That's where the machine's going to be plugged in. Just a cheap one, a basic one I bought off of Amazon, no big deal. Anything will work. You need light. You got to be able to see your machine, see what it's doing, and see when you're setting it up. I think there's enough overhead light in here that's not going to be an issue. If you're putting it up, you're setting your machine up in the darker corner of your shop, you may need to get some task lighting. You know, one of the little clip-on lamps or something. Just get enough light at your machine that you can see what's going on. Now, CNCs are noisy, so that's something else you need to consider is the noise. A lot of them use routers. Most of them that I've seen use routers as a motor. Router motors are noisy. Not a lot of the machines have a way to control that noise at the machine. If you can, if you have like a little side room off your shop, that may be a good place for your CNC. Because then once you get it running, you proved it out, you know that it's going to run just fine. You can put it in there, you leave it in there. You can go out to another part of your shop or away from it somehow. And the noise is kind of contained over in that area. If you don't, or if you're in a small shop, then you'll probably want to wear ear protection. The smaller the shop is, the more important it is. Now, obviously, you'll need a computer nearby. It is a computer-controlled machine, so you have to have some kind of computer here. Got my laptop right here. That's what I'm going to be using. You can use a laptop or a desktop. You just need, check the requirements of your software. We'll get to that later. Your computer will need power. Again, plugged into the surge protector back here. You may be able to get away without having power for your computer if you're using a laptop and you're running short, simple programs. But the longer your programs get, the older your laptop gets, your battery may not last long enough. So I've got my laptop plugged in because it's an older one. I know the battery's not going to work out. If you're using a desktop, then you'll need a plug for your tower and your monitor. It also needs to be protected from dust as much as you can. But at the same time, it still needs to be able to release heat so that it doesn't burn out the internal components. So you can't put it in an enclosed box. It's probably going to get at least somewhat dusty no matter what you do. So don't take your brand new iMac down and set it up right next to your CNC, unless you kind of have that money to burn, and then we can talk about going into some kind of partnership. It'd also be a really good idea to back up your files before you take your computer into your shop. Especially with that much dust, you could let the magic smoke out of the machine, could show you the blue screen of death, and then if you haven't backed up, not only are you out a few $100s, several $100s for the computer, now you've lost all that data too. So back it up before you take it into the shop. You'll need space around your machine for a few things. You'll need wrenches and tools that you need to set up your machine. That's going to vary a lot depending on what your machine you picked and what work holding you have. You'll need calipers. Calipers are CNC machinist's best friend. When I'm at work, they're right here on my hip all night. Probably not going to do that here, but I'll have somewhere by the machine to put them. You'll use them for checking your parts and for setting up your machine, checking the tool, make sure it's the right size, things like that. Now, calipers are precision tools, just like your squares in your woodworking shop. They need to be protected. You don't want to knock them off of the table onto the floor, especially if you're on concrete. You could chip the tips of your calipers, they're not going to work as well, or they may not work at all. Some of them are really sensitive to shock. If you drop them wrong, they're not going to read right at all. So put them somewhere that they're going to be protected from falling, from being bumped with something, and do all that you can to keep the dust out from under the slide of your calipers. It starts to jam up the gears, and then they're just not going to work well, and they're really hard to take apart and put back together and still be accurate. The other thing you'll need space around your machine for are your cutting tools. Now, your cutting tools, they have sharp edges. That's what they do, they cut. Well, your skin's a lot softer than wood. They'll cut your skin too. You don't want to just leave them sitting out on a table where you can walk by and accidentally drag your hand across it and now your hand's cut. It's not going to be a deep cut, but it's going to be annoying and it's going to hurt. So you also want somewhere that the cutting edges are going to be protected. They're small, especially with the carbide, they're brittle, they break very easily. Tiniest little knock of something and you've got a chip in your tool. It's not going to cut as well. Most of the tools will come in some kind of a protective sleeve. When I'm not using them, I'm going to leave them in the sleeve or reuse sleeves if I get some tools that don't have them. Reuse them as I rotate through. And then I'm going to put those sleeves, these little Acro Mills bins. So this particular setup has 64 drawers, they're all the same size. You can subdivide the drawers, you can divide them in half. There's little things on the back of the cabinet that you can cut out and put in here. So that gives you up to 128 places to put tools. I think that's going to be more than enough for what we're doing with our home CNCs. And then this whole cabinet eventually is going to be mounted right over here next to my computer up off of the table out of the way. You'll need some place for your work holding equipment to go. A lot of the machines come with clamps or offer them as an accessory for fairly cheap. We'll also discuss making your own work holding in a video down the line somewhere. Stuff like that. I have a shelf right up here above my laptop. That's probably where I'm going to put mine. If you have drawers under your machine, or I saw somewhere somebody had a toolbox under theirs, something like that will be a good place for those too. Again, whatever works out best for you. The last thing to consider is dust collection. CNCs will throw dust and chips everywhere. Not many of the machines are enclosed, so that's going to be a big mess in your shop if you don't have any dust collection set up. So I would strongly recommend that you get the dust collection is available with your machine. If it's not available, there are a lot of places online that offer files to CNC machine parts to connect your machine to dust collection. Or you can design your own once you get into and comfortable with designing things. It may be a good first project to work on. Again, I ordered the dust collection with mine, so that'll be one of the things that we go through setting up when I set up the machine. Now there's two ways that you can hook that up. You can either have a shop vac, or you can hook up to central dust collection if you have it, like for your other stationary power tools, your table saw, bandsaw, things like that. The difference between those, the dust collection port doesn't move on the table saw and the bandsaw and the jointer and everything like that. The dust collection port on your CNC moves. So regardless of which way you hook it up, you got to make sure that you have enough hose that you can get to all four corners of the machine and everywhere in between without stretching that hose where it's going to strain your CNC. That's going to start leading to problems down the road. If you have a shop vac that you're hooking up to, you'll need space underneath your machine or next to your machine to put the canister. If you're hooking up to central dust collection, you just need to make sure that there's a connection close to where you're setting up your machine, where you can stretch a hose or reach a hose without stretching it. Again, you don't want that stress on your machine. My little shop vac is living right down here under the machine. If that turns out to not be enough, I'll go get my big shop vac and park it under there. It'll just be that much louder. The other thing you'll want as far as dust is a chip brush. It's just basically a cheap paintbrush. You know, Harbor Freight has them all the time. Sometimes they're called bench brushes. You just want to be able to clean off your part, clean off your table, anything the dust collection misses. And when you're going to put a new part in, it'd be good to brush off the table. Make sure you're sitting flat on the surface instead of sitting on some kind of chips or something. So I think that covers everything that you'll need to set up your machine. If you think I missed anything, leave it in the comments. We can discuss it there. If you have any questions for me, my email is buddy@homecncresource.com. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time when we'll start getting this thing set up.